Well, the U.S. says a Navy logistics vessel has set sail for the eastern Mediterranean to establish a temporary pier in Gaza to deliver aid. But it's expected to take at least 2 months for the pier to become operational, and it isn't yet clear how the aid will be distributed. Aid groups say the move by U.S. President Joe Biden sidesteps the core issue, the need to allow in large numbers of trucks through existing crossings. Well, let's speak to Meg Sattler about this. She joins us from Melbourne in Australia. She's the CEO of Ground Truth Solutions. They help people affected by crisis shape how humanitarian aid is implemented. Thank you so much, Meg, for being with us on Al Jazeera. So what are your thoughts first about this temporary pier that the Americans want to set up? Is this an efficient, effective way of bringing in aid to Gaza?
I mean, the short answer to that is no, but I think the first question we have to ask ourselves is how have we gotten to this point? You know, humanitarian agencies have been warning for months that all signs were pointing to an absolutely critical humanitarian situation in Gaza. If a lasting ceasefire didn't come, if humanitarian law wasn't respected inside Gaza, and if land borders weren't opened up for unrestricted aid access. So, of course, none of that has happened. We did some research with people living in Gaza over 2 months ago now that showed a population in absolutely desperate need of food and water. I think at that time, 90% of those we spoke to, 97% even, were rationing food to survive, skipping meals, and drinking dirty water. I think if you start with some basic truths. Land access is possible now, today. The land borders are not closed by some natural force like an earthquake, as we see in other places. They're being blocked by humans, and they need to be opened up again. And what is going to save lives now is a ceasefire combined with unimpeded access for humanitarian workers. Yeah. You can sort of see from a humanitarian imperative standpoint, you know, why people would go to the extreme lengths that they're now going to try to get aid to Gaza. But how long does it take to build a seaport? I mean, people are starving to death now. And when people reach this level of hunger, they have hours in which an intervention might help them. They don't have weeks. Yeah. And so I think we're sort of skirting around the real problem, which is the land access, which is going to be much more effective. Yeah, land access, and all aid organizations agree that this is the most efficient way and the most urgent way that aid needs to get into Gaza right now. But at the same time, you have, different countries, the US, the EU Commission also hoping that an aid route from Cyprus to Gaza will open on Sunday, that ships will be able to depart from Larnaca in Cyprus to Gaza. Do you feel like the international community is putting enough effort in delivering aid to Gaza in an organized way? It seems that every country is trying to do their own thing here. I think from what I've seen, I'm not in Gaza, but the attempts that we've seen from particularly, the United Nations to coordinate the aid that is going in, people are really doing what they can. I think there has been, obviously, the geopolitical tensions have potentially caused some delays in some aid decisions that could have happened a little bit faster. We've seen the cutting of funding to UNRWA and then the reversal of those cuts. A lot of people just really scrambling to work out what they can do, what is possible. I think at the moment, when it comes to humanitarian assistance, there seems to be people trying to come together to do the right thing. I'm not sure from an advocacy standpoint that people are pushing hard enough for this lasting ceasefire that is needed. As well as pushing hard enough for this unimpeded humanitarian access, because those two things together at this point, given how critical the situation is, are really the only things that are going to make a difference. Yeah. You told us about the assessment you were able to have on Gaza about 2 months ago and the situation on the ground there. How difficult is it today to organize an aid operation on a large scale in Gaza, given the immense needs that are on the ground? It's incredibly difficult. I think there's a lot of really dedicated humanitarians who are trying their best. First of all, there's a problem just of amounts. So the only entry points to Gaza currently allowed are in the south. There's not enough aid for people in the south as it is. But to get aid to the north, where people are really suffering, convoys have to travel, through these smashed up roads. There's rubble everywhere. They're under constant threat of attack. Even just looting. I mean, this is a desperate population now, and many convoys have been looted as well as being blocked or delayed. People who are trying to access aid are being fired upon, as we saw last week. So, the conditions are really, really challenging. There are certainly, from our research, we found a lot of community groups who are doing their best to try to collect assistance or food that was available, make sure that it was redistributed amongst different communities so that those in the most need were able to get it. But being realistic, that was a couple of months ago, and the situation has just descended since then. It's absolutely hideous. And so I think, as I said before, what really needs to happen is a lasting ceasefire, not a temporary pause in hostilities, and the need to adhere to international humanitarian law, because currently conditions for aid workers are just too dangerous for them to be able to do what they need to do, let alone for the people who are trying to access this life-saving assistance.
Thank you for talking to us, Meg. Thank you very much for your time. Meg Sattler joining us there from Melbourne, Australia.
Thank you so much.